Hi folks, good evening, and thank you so much for joining me this evening. I know some of you were hoping that there would have been a live on Friday, but I felt like, taking a 5. So I spent Friday evening just relaxing. So today, this afternoon, we're going to do two things. I'm going to quickly do a review of the major stories that were in the news this week, and then we're going to get into an interview with my guest this week, PCA Director David West. I did promise you that I was going to try and bring him back on to do a follow-up interview from the last time. So hello to Kwame, hi Fabian, hi Leon, hi Allison, Paulette. Yes, no mask as of midnight tonight. Today is the 17th of July. I still wore my mask today when I went out, and I think I told you all I will continue to be wearing my mask depending on the venue that I'm in. If nobody's around me, I'll take the mask off, but if I'm in certain public spaces, I definitely gonna keep my mask on for now until I start to feel comfortable again. So good evening to everyone, and let me try and get into it. So I kicked off the show with Chanel Dempster's River, and that's because we are properly well into the rainy season, like proper. We had the storm warning, the cyclone, a couple weeks ago, and then after that I felt like there was about a week or two where there was more sun than there was rain. But then in the last couple days or so, there's been a lot of rain to the point where there's been flooding in low-lying areas. So you guys need to be careful. There is a fair amount of this that you have to deal up with.
Yo, all who trying to come Maracas, you want to lie Maracas, bad time for Maracas. Pressure in the place again.
So this week, with the rains that happened, Thursday, Friday, thereabouts, there was the road fell away up on the north coast. So it's not just persons in Maracas that have to deal up with what took place there. It's Maracas. It would be villages like Zorro Village, Rincon, Las Cuevas, La Fillette, Blanchisseuse, all the way up to Paria, when you get to the end of the road there by Paria. So be careful. The rains are here, and it's not just, of course, the hilly areas. Of course, once you have rain falling up in the mountains, it means that very soon down in the plains, there's a lot of flooding taking place. So by now, everybody should be aware that we're good and proper in the rainy season. Please make the effort to be mindful. Make sure you have your supplies. Make sure you're prepared. Make sure your drains cleaned. Make sure you're ready, right? What was that? The weather is not that bad. No, man. the weather getting to that point. There were 2 earthquakes, not one, 2 earthquakes. 2 consecutive days there were earthquakes. There was a 4 point something, and then there was a 5.8. And thankfully the 5.8 was out at sea, and I guess I wasn't sure if it was shallow or deep. But there were 2 consecutive days where there were earthquakes. So folks, basically saying we're properly well into the rainy season and we're prone to disasters. So please make sure that you have yourselves all prepared and ready. So that's that. Rain, getting ready for the rain. At the start of the week, as a matter of fact, the week before and then coming into this week, there was a lot of talk from the gentleman who I think is applying to become the commissioner for Facebook, Gary Griffith. So there are a couple things that I want to look at. One to do with how forgetful he is, and another recording that points to interference in the hiring process for commissioner of police. And as much as we might laugh at these things when these voice notes circulate, I think it's important for us to understand the implications of interfering with the hiring process for a particular job. So give me 2 seconds. Let me find the video.
Then what politicians love to do is every time you get in place to try to remove the legacy of the person who was there before. So similar to what happened in 2010, where the UNC shut down SOT, they shut down the OPVs and everything else because it was a P&M project.
I'm going to play that again because I want you all to hear the last couple seconds where he talks about what happened in 2010. And he talks about what happened in 2010 as if it had nothing to do with him, as if he was not part and parcel of the actions that he's describing.
Then what politicians love to do is every time you get in place to try to remove the legacy of the person who was there before. So similar to what happened in 2010, where the UNC shut down SOT, they shut down the.
So he says the thesis is when governments come in, when there's a change in government, they tend to stop the projects and policies of the previous government, right? Whenever there's a changeover in government. I'm not complaining and not questioning and not challenging that. We have lived here long enough to see the change between one thing and the next thing and, policy shifting all the time. So me not arguing there. What I thought was interesting is that Griffith is acting in this. He has disengaged himself and is speaking about the dismantling of SOT, and of course there'll be other things, the sale of the blimp, the sale of the OPVs, the destruction of the national security surveillance apparatus, all of those things that would have happened between 2010 and 2011. And he talks about the UNC having done that as if he wasn't the national security advisor to the then UNC government and would have had an active and centralized role to play. So I listened to that and I thought to myself, is Gary having an out-of-body experience? Is Gary at the point where he has disassociated himself from himself? So that's that clip. But there is also this audio clip that I'm trying to remember if I remember to download the clip. Oh Lord, I hope I remember to download that clip because this clip important. And it is to do with the hiring. So let me pause that. It is to do with the applications the submission of applications for the job of Commissioner of Police. So we have the officer from the TTPS, a former officer from the TTPS, I think William Nurse, speaking to a group in a WhatsApp chat message and talking about a conversation that he would have had with Griffith. Where is it?
Having attended to D, I discovered.
Right, just now. Let me get this from the start.
The head and to members of this chat. I have not attended this chat in a very long while. So having attended to D, I discovered that there were a lot of goings on, and I thought it is expedient that I make my position very, very clear. I don't think I can make my position clearer than I already have. I have not been friends with anybody. I was born on the 9th of March, 1963. That makes me 60 years old on the 9th of March, 2023. As of September 14th, I proceed on pre-retirement leave. And I am confident that I have been given opportunities to serve in very distinguished chambers, both in Tobago and in Trinidad. Beyond 60, I have no interest in the police service. I think I have done my fair bit. My CV will show that I have had the privilege, and I can boast that I was possibly the most successful leader of the Anti-Corruption Investigation Bureau, and I'm very pleased. Now, let me clarify something. Mr. Griffith and I have had very, very differences in opinion we have had falling outs, bitter falling outs. I am not afraid to stand up to anybody because I was born in a place called Richmond Point, Belgarden, Tobago, and I came from a very distinguished Tobago family. And I am not afraid. I have no friends to that extent who could make me forbear myself. So Mr. Griffith asked me if I applied for the job, and I told him no.
This is important. A call for applications to a post, one of the most important posts in national security, that of the Commissioner of Police, is put out, right? So the Police Service Commission, who's responsible for hiring a Commissioner of Police, would have put out an ad. People would have applied. Gary Griffith actually called somebody else to ask, did you apply for the job? And according to the voice note that was sent around, the first voice note that was sent around, Griffith was basically saying to this gentleman, well, I had hoped that you would have applied. So when you were being interviewed, if you didn't get through with the position, if this gentleman here didn't become the Commissioner of Police or wasn't successful with his application, he would then say to the interview panel that Griffith would be the better person to fill the post. You all need to understand something. That's interference with the hiring process. Griffith has gone the length and breadth of this of media in the country to get himself rehired. That is part of how you could go about trying to influence the process. But that's a public way of trying to influence the process. And we know that hiring a Commissioner of Police is not like a beauty competition, and it is not a Facebook poll. But when you get to the point where you are going to persons who might possibly be candidates for a position, who might have applied for a position, and you are attempting to persuade them to say to the hiring committee, well, the best person for the job is this person, that's interfering with the hiring process. And I don't know about all you, but I am very uncomfortable that a candidate who wants to be in a position where you have access to people with guns, you are meant to be fighting crime, you are meant to be upholding and enforcing the law, is so comfortable with the idea of interfering with a process that is meant to be fair and equitable. Right? I am leaving it there. Or you could think about it and ponder on it some more. But I looked at that, I listened to that voice note, and I said to myself, Gary, that is you trying to interfere with a process after you beat your body all over the place talking about who interfering with the Police Service Commission and who trying to influence the Service Commission last year. This is you trying to get involved in the hiring process of commissioner? Okay, all right. If they put Gary back there as commissioner, listen, as a country, we like it so. All right, that's my final comment on it. So that's us there. The next thing, Tuesday gone, I would have had a conversation here with the deputy CEO responsible for business generation at FCB. I had Jason Julian here. And we had a really lovely live talking about the FCB APO, talking about its benefits, talking about why people should consider investing in it, and also talking about how people should go about investing in it. Lo and behold, later down in the week, right? So there's the FCB APO. Later down in the week, Wade Mark put out a story. He did an interview with the Express and basically was bashing FCB, bashing the corporate entity, and of course questioning the APO, questioning FCB's profitability, questioning FCB's investments. And I thought, well, what is really going on here? So I saw that the Ministry of Finance put out a press release basically accusing Wade Mark of what had crossed my mind. I felt that it was passing strange that in the week just before the APO closes, here is a member of the opposition coming out and lashing at a corporate entity at the height of the sharing, the sale, sorry, not the sharing, the sale of shares, the sale of assets. And I wondered, well, why are you trying to besmirch the company? Why are you trying to shake public confidence in First Citizens Bank? Now I want all to know and understand this. This is not the first time that FCB has offered shares. This is also not the first time that the government has created, as in this sitting government, has created a mutual fund assets, a sale of assets put out into the public domain, and opposition forces, whether it is UNC or otherwise, have come out and bashed the offering. There was a National Investment Fund. Left, right, and center, they pong the National Investment Fund. The first offering of the FCB APO was also under stress. And now, of course, this offering of the FCB APO. So I want to say this. What you do with your money is, of course, your business. But don't allow people to dissuade you, to undermine your confidence, or to think that you should not be doing with your money what you choose to do with your money. Because I felt it was passing strange. I didn't think it was a coincidence at all that all of a sudden this week questions were being raised about First Citizens Bank and its profitability. So I also heard some very good news about FCB this weekend. I heard they were open all day Saturday and all day Sunday, setting up brokerage accounts for people who are interested in purchasing shares. So I was very happy about that. And Wade Mark, oh God, try your best now. A national asset you're going to be undermining like that? A state enterprise, a state entity you're going to be undermining like that? Why are you going to try and damage FCB? Is regular citizens' money inside the bank? Why would you do something like that? If you go after the bank in that way and attack the bank in that way, you're impacting on regular citizens who have their assets in the bank. People different bad, yes? So that was FCB and Wade Mark. But then the big story this week was LAT. LAT had the petition, they had the meeting for the petition, and let me tell you something. This meeting was tears, literally, for some people. Let me put this picture up, and let me see if all you could watch in the back and see. At the back there, just over this guy's head, just over the microphone, who all you making out in the back there? Who all you making out in the back there? When you get the opportunity to look at the picture good, you will see former Attorney General Anand Logan was there at the LAT meeting. Now, this petition, when the petition was launched, there was a sense of fait accompli, right, from a bunch of persons. There was a sense that, okay, we're going after the AG and we're going to get Reggie Armour out. And of course, I looked on. I had even put up a post indicating that there are several thousand lawyers in this country, more than 4,000 lawyers in this country. How is it that a handful of lawyers seem to be using LAT as if it's their own personal instrument? So the meeting took place, the petition, the votes and everything, and the votes were in-person votes as well as virtual votes. So they took account in that way. And weeping, wailing, gnashing of teeth took place. I mean, men were in tears. You had Alan Karim, kick out the PNM, basically calling LAT the Liars Association of Trinidad and Tobago. There was that much hurt taking place. Then I saw Candace Nahus put up a post basically saying, I mean, it was a long post. It's like a think piece, it's almost like an article. Basically saying that based on the vote that took place on Friday, she's no longer proud to be a lawyer. And, she spent a long time talking about integrity and how she felt and how undermined she felt. And I paused and I thought to myself, I wonder how Candace feels about somebody not having the right qualifications, being given a contract by the state to do a job that they don't have proper qualifications to do. I wonder if she has any sort of problem with something like that, if that would ever make her feel bad about living here, or if she's the sort of person for whom that's not an issue at all, because it means, well, somebody she know living a better life, right? So I thought about that. Then I saw the comments from Wayne Sturge. And Wayne Sturge goes on in his think piece to talk about lawyers who got briefs for the state from the state. And I thought, Wayne Sturge, you could be describing yourself a couple years ago, having benefited from a range of state briefs. So to decide that you're calling out people and you're basically saying that people didn't vote in the way in which they voted because of state briefs leads me to ask the question, did you vote the way you voted because you didn't get briefs from the state this time around? A couple years ago, were you voting the way in which you were voting because you got briefs from the state? Unfair games has had to play twice, Wayne. Unfair games has had to play twice. And, of course, as a result of... Oh, do I have the stats here? Oh, I thought I had the stats here. I thought I'd put the stats here. In any case, as a result of the vote on Friday, the petition collapsed. And after the petition collapsed, what you saw on social media was a range of complaints coming out of the opposition. I found that interesting. I found it very instructive, because when the petition was launched in the first place, a lot of the persons associated with the petition were persons who were affiliated with the opposition. And the behavior on Friday was almost as if they felt that the law association belonged to them and the law association had failed them. And I think that that is an interesting position that the opposition took on Friday evening, well into the weekend, because all of the newspaper articles and columns today are focused on what happened with the Law Association's petition on Friday and the way in which people seem to think that the vote was supposed to have gone one way and then it didn't. Interesting. In any case, that's the review of the major stories for the week. And now I am going to bring my guest on screen. As if he's ready. I'm assuming that he probably in the makeup chair, prettying up himself, getting himself ready. And no, ladies, he didn't agree to come in football shorts or anything like that. He's in regular PCA gear. Ready for us? You want to take off the fan? Go take off the ceiling fan. Yes, Tay. I'm wondering if, they think it's a party group or something like that. That's the only thing that makes sense to me at this point in time. That they feel somehow that the opposition thinks it owns the law association. Vonnet says she's logging off, yes, no shorts. Vonnet, I can't tell my guests what to wear. I can't tell them what to wear. There we go. All set and ready. Nice. So, good evening, Mr. West. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Good evening. How
Thanks.
are you?
I'm good. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for agreeing to do this with us this evening. So, David, I have to ask. I've seen a flurry of activity come out of the PCA in the last month or so, right? Well, more than the last month, but definitely in the last month. In the last month, I felt like every week or every couple of days I was putting up something about the PCA. So you could tell me, it's just us here. This flurry of activity was to get back at me for the for the complaints I made last year about the PCA.
No, not at all.
I'm pulling your leg. I want to say congratulations on all the work that we've seen coming out of the PCA. I took a look today at my email, the email that my media stuff comes in on, and there was a particular week where, like 2 days in a row, there were updates coming out of the PCA with with reports and investigations that are completed. So let me ask this: what has allowed for that flurry of activity in the last couple months?
Well, I think it just had to do with timing, really, Rhoda. We have been working hard behind the scenes. As you know, when we put out a publication in the press saying that we have launched an investigation, we don't talk about the investigation because, of course, it's confidential. So we only, at the end of the investigation, we put out a press release saying what has happened and what the authority has done. So I think it was just coincidence that those releases came out right away. The Anella Graves matter, we've been working very hard on that for the past 2 years, and we finished it. The Rich Plain shooting, kudos to my investigators and the legal team and everybody at the PCA who worked hard. And Rhoda, I want to let you know that I think, I know now that the public has total confidence in the PCA because we got witnesses who would not go near the police officers, all right? And that is how we were able to close that matter and give the recommendation we gave, because the witnesses gave credible evidence.
I want to go through some of the cases here one by one. The Ornella Graves case, and let's start with that because that's 2 years old. What were the challenges that you would have faced with that, and then of course what allowed you to be able to finish the investigation?
Right. What happened was, I think a major challenge is always the forensic evidence in police shootings. Okay, but we had a chat with the DPP, and he has realized, I think, that getting a post-mortem report takes very long. So he is saying that once there is a cause of death, and there's a post-mortem, that is the death certificate, we can use that. When
you say you can use that, what exactly does that mean? Because you're saying here forensic evidence in police shootings are an issue. Are we talking about ballistics? Are we talking about gunpowder residue? What are we talking about when we talk about forensic evidence in the shootings? And then, of course, why is cause of death so important?
Right. Well, we're talking about the range of ballistics is very important. Ammunition, matching the ammunition to the gun that was fired or allegedly fired. That takes time because there's so many gun crimes in Trinidad and Tobago now that, of course, everything is in a line. Very rarely you get a skip because every murder is important to a family, of course, and every investigator. So that's important. The post-mortem report is quite important because it actually details the gunshots, if it was an entry wound or an exit wound, and also of course, blunt force trauma is a cause of death, gunshot is a cause of death. So that is very important. But because the DPP is going to accept the death certificate which says that the person died of a gunshot wound, we can use that to show that if it is alleged, of course, and I'm talking hypothetically now, that the police officers shot at somebody and as a result the person died, where we can use that cause of death in our evidence to show that the police officers' firearm shot at the person and as a result of that they caused death. Okay. So it could be either manslaughter, self-defense, or murder.
Okay, all right. And so in that sense, the death certificate then becomes part of your investigation.
Correct.
And you can use the analysis from that death certificate to allow you to make recommendations to the DPP?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
So I want to ask this. Is it possible that the public can know what the recommendations are that are made to the DPP? Because I read the press releases and you are careful to say that there have been recommendations, but you don't detail them. Is there a constraint in terms of detailing what the recommendations are?
No, there's no constraint, but we don't want to prejudice the public or anything like that to say that our recommendation was from murder, assault. So we don't want to box in the DPP or let the public know what we have recommended. If it is that we make a recommendation and at the end of the day the DPP decides to lay a charge, well, a charge has been laid for X, Y, and Z. So we don't want to preempt or prejudice anybody's mind.
But do you think, or has it ever been raised that in putting that information out there into the public domain can work in the direction of accountability? And I'm saying this because there are times when I look at the press releases and I'd love to know what the recommendations are, so that if the DPP is lagging on something or eventually you're hearing otherwise, then I would want to know, well, how can one entity arrive at this, breaches of this particular legislation and another entity not, I guess. So for me, I just feel knowing what the recommendations are would help me, assist me to pay more attention to what comes out of the office of the DPP. But so has it ever been raised? I'm just wondering.
Well, it's been raised, but remember, you are a journalist and you want to find out what's going on because you want to be the first to break the story.
Right.
All right. But remember, we do an investigation and then we make a recommendation to the DPP. So that should tell you that we have made a recommendation to the DPP. Therefore, we have found some kind of criminal culpability. Now, I don't think it's necessary for you to know what it is we find. And that is in my purview. And I think that for confidentiality's sake and pre-trial publicity, I'll keep it that way. Because I'm already getting some stick from the Police and Social Welfare Association and the attorneys for the police officers that I shouldn't be making this and I shouldn't be making that statement. But I have a duty to the public to let them know that we have started an investigation, we have completed our investigation, and we have made recommendations. So I have kept within the strictures of our act and the law.
David, has there ever been a situation where you would have sent forward a file with recommendations, either the office of the DPP or the TTPS have eventually laid charges or said which charges need to be laid, and it doesn't line up with the recommendations you made?
Yes, it has happened.
And what happens then? Do you ever, is it challenged, or what happens?
No, it's not challenged. Remember, the DPP has, under the Constitution, he has the ultimate decision what charges to lay. And what happens is normally we consult with the DPP to find out why he did that, and to benefit us. So we're learning. All right, I'm not going to say we get every recommendation right, but the DPP is there to guide us, and we take his guidance. And I could think it only happened about once or twice that the recommendation didn't line up. So we have been learning. So there is consultation with the DPP. So we know his thinking. So when it comes down to lay the recommendation, we are not being reckless. We know what exactly he's thinking about. We know what evidence we have. So whether or not we can prove it or not, we make the recommendations with the evidence that we have and that we think that the DPP would be aligned with also. Okay,
all right. But let's get back to the Onella Graves case. So you were saying that the death certificate was something that you were allowed to use. What made it possible for you to wrap up this investigation to pass on the case? So what helped? What helped with the investigation?
I think also what helped greatly was that we were able to hire an independent expert in terms of drafting the scene and what happened, and that was also very influential.
When you say
in our decision.
When you say drafting the scene, what does that mean?
Well, we had a draftsman, okay, with the witnesses saying where A, B, C, and D were.
Okay, so basically like a layout of the entire.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
and that helped to determine what would have taken place.
Yes.
Is that something new that you've done? Is in using that sort of initiative? I guess.
No, we have done it before also.
Okay. All
You
right.
know, so and because we remember we have luckily we have we get from Parliament we get a budget.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and every month we get releases for our budget. So therefore we have money and we put in money for draftsperson, independent, you know, consultants, etc. So we have money. So we use that money to pay these types of people to further our mandate, which is very good. So that is why the PCA works, in that, you know, we don't need to go to a permanent secretary. We don't need to get approval from anybody. And as long we are audited every year, and the auditors have so far for this past 7 years I've been there have been fine with our spending of the public funds, because we spend the money to better the public and better the organization.
So is
To
it that
make it more
you
efficient.
have a wide range of specialists that you would use in
Yeah, I've used
conducting?
yes, I've used firearm specialists. If you remember, in the day of total policing, I used Mr. Wellington Virgil, former police officer, to assist us in that investigation. So I have done that in the past.
Okay. The Rich Plain shooting at the mosque, you know, what allowed for... I noticed in reading that press release, you pointed out that the officers who were involved in that Rich Plain shooting were also linked to the PC Jokes shooting.
Right. So let me just correct you a little bit.
Sure.
There was a PC Jerk shooting
Mm-hmm.
that involved officers from the West End Division.
Right.
And then there was a mosque. The next day, they went and raided the mosque at the masjid
Right.
in Richmond. And they were the same officers who went on the exercise. Remember, in the Jerks matter, there were, let's say, about 15 officers.
Mm-hmm.
And they were in 3 separate groups. And so those officers were also some of them were also part of the raid at the masjid.
Okay, so some of the officers from the Jokes incident, some of them were part of the raid on the masjid.
Correct.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure that I have that clear for the public and I don't muddy things up and make things confused. So I want to understand that raid at the masjid. What was that raid at the masjid about, and how did it escalate into something that fell into the PCA's lap?
Well, first of all, that was during Ramadan, the month of Ramadan.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the officers believed that there was evidence there to find. Remember, they were looking for Jelano Romani. They were
Mm-hmm.
looking for the accused. So they thought he may have been hiding there. But you cannot go into a place like that and desecrate the place looking for somebody. You know, there are ways of carrying out a search, and there are illegal ways of carrying out a search. And that did not fall within, in our view, within the ambit of proper good policing.
Okay, and there's either laws or procedure that would point to how they would go about, how they ought to go about, doing a raid
Yes.
in a space like that?
Correct.
All right, let me ask you this. Let's move away from mosque specifically and just talk about a religious space. If police have to execute a raid in a religious space, what is meant to happen?
Well, first of all, they need a search warrant,
Mm-hmm.
okay, to do that. And then you get the search warrant that lists what you're looking for. You go to the imam, you go to the priest or whoever is in charge of the building. You show them the warrant, and they let you in. And then you search properly for the. When I say properly, you search. You don't overturn desks. You don't make a mess. You don't destroy a cupboard. You don't. You do it in a civilized manner. All right, because you have the authority, the lawful means to go in and search. There's no time limit in the search. All right, so you go in, you do your search thoroughly, properly, effectively, and at the end of the day, what if you find something on your warrant? You take it and you go your way. But you do not desecrate a place of religion during your search. All right, that is not how the police are taught or trained to carry out a search of a religious institution.
Okay. All right. And the PC Jokes case, because that was a really touchy matter. It certainly had the public up in arms and held the public's imagination. So what was that case like for the PCA to investigate?
Well, remember, first of all, it started off where the accused at the time wanted to give his side of the story to the PCA first, because he trusted the PCA and he did not want to be turned into the police. Remember, he was a wanted man.
Yeah, I remember. The entire country thought that he had killed the police officer.
Exactly. So therefore, he wanted to come to so he came into the PCA, he gave us his statement, etc., and spoke to us. We then contacted a branch of the police service, and then we handed him over to that branch. They then interviewed him. By the time they interviewed him, the ballistics had come out saying that PCJS was shot from behind. So he could not have been shot from in front where Jelano was supposed to be in front. So therefore, he was asked questions and he was released without charge.
So
and then from
go ahead.
Right. So from that, we got other witnesses that he named, other civilian witnesses. He named, and we took statements from those civilian witnesses, which supported his side of the events that took place. In the meantime, we got the station diary extracts. We know who the police were. We got the ballistics. We got all the information. So we gathered all of that, and we went to the DPP and presented our case.
Is this the first time something like this has happened, where somebody thinks that they're in danger from the police and they have to ask you to kind of function as an intermediary?
No, not the first time.
Okay, all right. And this is something that the PCA is prepared to do whenever called upon?
Definitely. It was very late in the night to the early morning, and I came out, and myself and members of the PCA came, and we did our job. And we don't have a time limit on when it is 8 to 4. If somebody is in a situation like that, where he feels his life is in danger, and I believe from all the utterances and how the country was feeling at the time, his life was in danger, he was brought to the PCA and we interviewed him and we did everything. So we will do that. Yes, we'll do it now. We do it again anytime. Okay. If we are of the view that somebody's life is in danger and he has wants to talk to the PCA. That is what we are there for.
David, I see that you've gotten an appointment. Reappointment. You have your
yes.
deputy director. You have
yes.
had the reappointment of your deputy director, and so now it means that you can resume official investigations into situations, right?
Correct.
Good. So this recent issue, the shooting that would have taken place downtown Port of Spain, Chacon Street, have you all launched an official investigation? Because I know the investigations might have been, or the queries might have been informal before, but is there now an official PCA investigation?
Yes, there is an official investigation. The same, actually, on Wednesday, I think at about 10:30, the appointment was made, and by 11 o'clock, letters were sent out.
Okay, excellent.
To the various bodies. Because we were preparing for it. So we prepared the letters, so when it happened, the letters were ready to go. And we knew exactly, the investigators and the legal team planned it, what they needed to get. We got that, and it was sent out. And as you could see on the papers, we had an interview of the young boy, came into the PCA with his parents, with his attorney, Omlala, and we interviewed him and took a very detailed statement from him.
Excellent.
And that was Friday, so it was all done expeditiously. And let me just point out, I want to thank the President again and the Prime Minister and leader of the opposition for making the appointment so quick and efficient. The Deputy Director, I think it was just 2 weeks, which is a very fast time. And that's because the country wanted to know that they had a function in Police Complaints Authority, and yes, we do have a function in Police Complaints Authority.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that 2 weeks is a short span of time, because for me, I feel appointments like these they're not surprise appointments. they know there are things that happen and occur, whether it's every year or every 3 years. So I feel that it would be more efficient if the reappointments or new appointments would happen before the lapses took place. But I'm glad to hear that 2 weeks was a short period of time. There's a question here from one of the listeners that I wanted to raise. This is respect to search protocols. We were talking about search protocols for religious spaces, and Lashare wants to know if the same protocols are meant to apply to residential property.
Yes, you must have a search warrant. Every search, well, the majority of searches must have a search warrant. Of course, if the police believe that an arrestable offense is taking place, you don't need a search warrant. You can go in and protect lives, etc. Or you could go in and see what's happening. But generally speaking, you need a search warrant. You go before a GP, and you get a search warrant. You believe that there are arms and ammunition, there are guns in a residential area or in a house, and you apply for it. You get your search warrant, and you go in and you get your search warrant.
I think the concern is not whether there's a search warrant or not, but the comment that you made about searching thoroughly but searching respectfully and not ransacking the place.
Well, again, yes, I agree that if the officers and this has happened many times, that the officers go into people's homes and ransack their homes and they leave it like that. I don't think that is good policing. I think that you should do it in a civilized way, and you should try and not do no damage to the person's property. That's important, because many times we have had a lot of complaints where the police have gone in and broken down gates, broken down doors, mashed up cupboards, etc., and just left it like that, and the people have to spend money that they don't have to pay. So but what I can tell the person is that they should write the police service and say that on such and such date, officers if they don't know, officers came in and ransacked my premises or broke my cupboard, take a photograph of it and send it to the commissioner of police, and they should see about compensation for them.
Okay, so there are avenues for compensation when things like that happen.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they are.
I didn't know that. So useful to know. So there's another question, and I'm not sure this is a question that you can answer. If you can't, just indicate, and that's fine. The person is asking, are the police trained to tactically handle shooting engagements that may abruptly erupt in various environments? I don't know if you can answer a question about police training.
Well, unfortunately, no. I can't answer it, but I would think, I'm talking as an attorney, as somebody who knows that police get training, and the police get trained by a lot of people. I would hope that the training does encompass that type of situation.
Okay. All right, I'm just checking to see if there are any other questions. No other questions coming up on the feed right now. So I want to switch up a little bit. Well, actually not switch up. It's to do with the new investigation. So you've launched a new investigation. Your deputy director sworn in at 10, letters issued at 11. We have yet another situation where the police have been engaged in a shooting and there's inadequate evidence to point to whether the shooting was a necessary shooting or not. So David, what's your position on police wearing body cameras?
Rhoda, my position has been since I came in 2014 that the police must wear body cameras. It is it's a necessary part of their uniform. It should be a part of their uniform. Since when former Commissioner Stephen Williams and former Commissioner Griffith, I spoke to both of them about body cams. Mr. Williams did try to roll out body cameras, but it didn't work. Former Commissioner Griffith did purchase body cameras, and I think that hopefully Mr. Jacob now said that he has body cameras and he will use it properly.
Why didn't the cameras work from under Stephen Williams? So let's start with Stephen Williams and come forward. Because the state has purchased body cameras. I know that the state has purchased body cameras. So what have been the challenges getting police officers to wear these body cameras?
police don't want to wear body cameras. That's the first challenge. All right, that is the first challenge, and I don't understand why police officers do not want to wear body cameras, where body cameras can show that they have done the right thing, and they can let the public know that the person who advanced to them had a firearm, who was using obscene language, whatever, can show that they did the right thing. So I don't understand why police officers do not want to wear body cameras.
Is it that
being said,
Go ahead.
Sorry, that being said, that I know former Commissioner Griffith did put out a standing order with regard to body cameras, which I don't know why has not been implemented.
When you say standing order, what does that mean?
Okay, right. So, the police service can make their own laws and regulations. So, if a commissioner, it's like an order, right? And the commissioner, Mr. Griffith, he did issue a standing order for body cameras and for their use, and I don't know why hasn't been implemented as yet.
After a commissioner does something like that, makes a standing order, what's supposed to happen? Is it that the divisional heads have to implement it? Well,
I know. I think at the time only 1,000 body cameras were purchased. Okay, let's just use a figure of 1,000 body cameras. So he then has to identify who should use those body cameras, which division, which unit would best be served by wearing those body cameras, who I would say interacts mostly with the police, all right? And they should be given the body cameras to use. And I guess it's up to him, because he is the Commissioner of Police, and he should say that Western Division Task Force, Interagency Task Force, I will give you 100 cameras out of the 1,000. Shogunas in Task Force, I'll give you 100. Southwestern, 100. You understand? And that's how it should work. And let me tell you, Rhoda, the cameras are easy. They switch onto your vest or onto your clothes. You switch it on, and then you go out and you do your patrol. Anything happens, the camera picks up. You come back, you put it down on the charger, and it charges, or you put it on another device and you record and you download what images were taken, and they're stored. It's like, and everybody has a cell phone. It's the same thing,
Yeah. So I'm trying to understand, is there legislation that allows police officers to refuse to wear the body cameras, or is it simply an administrative issue at this point, in terms of nobody has said 100 cameras here distributed across these stations, and these officers have to wear the cameras? Is it as basic as that, or is there some sort of legislative issue still?
No, it's administrative.
That's scary. You know why it's scary? Because whole lives are being lost in communities. And to the best of my knowledge, because no crimes, we're not aware that these persons have committed crimes. You have innocent lives that are being lost in communities, and we don't have evidence. And the reason we don't have evidence is because of an administrative lapse. That's chilling.
And we have the body cameras there to use.
So, apart from body cameras, what else do you think the TTPS ought to be using to assist with accountability for its actions?
Non-lethal weapons, Rhoda. Tasers are very important. I don't understand why. I think they started to use tasers, and I haven't heard anything. I know they did buy tasers under former Commissioner Griffith. I know matters that were recorded and reported where the officer did use a taser, and especially on mentally challenged persons. We had a lot of police shootings on mentally challenged persons where the tasers could have been and should have been used. Would have been the perfect example, because they don't have the mental mens rea to kill. I mean, this is a civilian who is mentally challenged, doesn't have the mens rea, that's the guilty mind or the guilty conscience, to kill the police officer. But the police officer sees him throwing rocks or is being charged with a cutlass, has no other mechanism to defend himself, and therefore shoots in self-defense.
Okay. Right.
I know a matter in St. Anne's, I think it was, where the police officer used the taser, and the person was subdued, taken to hospital, given his correct meds, etc., and he was released, and nobody died.
So why aren't more tasers being used? Is it an administrative issue as well?
Well, maybe I think it's financial. I mean, these are questions that the commissioner has to answer. Why he doesn't have more tasers? I mean, is this present commissioner in favor of tasers? Is he in favor of more non-lethal weapons? I mean, I don't know. You know, I know he says that he is in favor of body cameras, and he just has to put the administrative issues, you know, there. So it is really for the police service to sort that out, but it's only administrative.
Now, I know that the PCA is an independent body. It's meant to function independently. The National Security Council, is that something that you ever have to make recommendations to, attend meetings, to make suggestions like the kinds of suggestions you've made here?
No.
Okay. All right. I just wondered.
Only sometimes we make recommendations to the Police Service Commission.
Okay, to the commission itself.
Yes.
And how does that work? Do they reach out to you, or do you independently make the decision to send a recommendation to them?
No, I independently make a decision to send a recommendation to them, where I feel that the police service could be improved. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So, body cameras, tasers. What else? Or do you think that body cameras and tasers are the starting point?
It's a starting point, Rhoda. All I want to see is, all anybody wants to see is a start. From then we can then build and determine whether or not it's working or it's not working, and what other measures should be taken. But let's just start with the body cams. It's there. It's been used in America all the time. It's used in England. It's used in Canada. It's used all over the world. You know, and it's proven as a mechanism that the police service should have on them.
It's a kind of tricky question to ask here, but I feel I need to ask it. Do you think that the police are resisting the use of body cameras because they know that they're not actually executing their responsibilities the way in which they're meant to be executing their responsibilities?
Well, I can't answer that question. I don't know is the answer. But I can tell you that there has been. I remember listening on the television to a program where a very senior officer was saying that the body cam was getting his way of executing his functions, over jumping over walls and doing that, and I was very surprised. So there is some pushback on wearing the body cam. The motive why, I don't know, and I don't want to speculate, but I know that it has not been embraced by all of the officers. Some of the officers I've spoken to want the body camera, but you can see that there has been pushback on the use of the body cameras.
Okay, so you think it might just be tech hesitancy? Because I know there's some people who aren't tech savvy, and so is it that they're just afraid of using technology?
I don't know. I mean, those are questions asked that should be pointed towards the officers themselves.
I will point the question towards the officers themselves, but I have to point the question towards you because in your position, you know things that I can't possibly know, in that you are aware of all of the complaints that are made about the police. You are aware of all of the evidence that you would have gathered over the last 7 years about these complaints that have been made about the police. And I'm sure you must be seeing trends.
Yes. Also, too, I can tell you also that the body cam would have been very useful, a very vital piece of evidence for both parties, both the PCA and the TTPS themselves need to have.
Vital. Why or vital? How? What was it likely to show?
It shows whether or not the civilian is telling the truth or the police officer is telling the truth. The video doesn't lie. It shows it's a fact. It's a picture taken of facts that have transpired during an encounter. All right? So therefore, and that is what is very good evidence to have.
So, are you hopeful that there's going to be more use of body cameras and tasers in future? I mean, you must be having conversations with the various stakeholders. So, how hopeful are you?
No, Rhoda, I think with the recent spate of police shootings and the public uproar, and I think the public have gathered momentum to support the PCA, and I've spoken to the commissioner about it. So, and he wants to see body cams implemented. So I believe it will happen. Once he gets the finance to purchase more body cams, it will happen. And I think more and more officers would be having body cams. I'm hoping by the end of the year, we can see, look at body camera on this officer. Look at body camera on that officer. So I'm hoping it would happen, Rhoda. I really am hoping.
Okay, all right. Well, that's where we're going to wrap it up, David. Thank you so much for taking the time off this Sunday evening, not doing your regular football game and spending it with us.
I was there at football, I couldn't play because I had to come on the show. So, you see how important you are?
David, the mama gets up.
You have evidence,
You have evidence?
Yeah, you could ask the lawyers.
You weren't wearing a body cam,
David?
David?
At 6 o'clock.
You weren't wearing a body cam?
I should have taken a picture.
You should have. If only because there were persons on the live that wanted to see you in shorts. That's why you should have taken the picture. So in future, don't let down my female fans. My female fan club, they were here to see Mr. West at 7 o'clock, and they were hoping that you would be in football wear.
All right, next time. But David, thank you so much, and I look forward to future conversations with you about all of the work that's taking place at the PCA. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me once again. Not a problem at all. It's always fun having you on here. Yeah. Take care. Okay. Have a good week. Care. Bye. So, folks, that was... What is going on here? That was PCA Director David West. Let me get rid of some of this stuff here. Right. That was PCA Director David West bringing us up to speed on all of the things that would have been going on with the PCA in the last couple of months, because there were a number of investigations that got wrapped up, cases sent forward to the office of the DPP, and of course they needed to have a new deputy director, or certainly to have a deputy director appointed, and the former deputy director, I don't remember her full name, I think it's Michelle Kisoon. I might have it wrong, so don't quote me on it just yet. But the former deputy director has been reappointed, so she remains the deputy director, and now they're back to being fully complemented and can do the work that needs to be done. So I want to thank Mr. West for spending the time with us this evening, and I want to thank you guys for spending the time with me here this evening, and this is where I wrap it up. So I will see you all later on in the week. I am going to be having a discussion with Antonio Declan Ross. I'm bringing Ross back by Wednesday to talk about how to start a business. So you can look out for that. You can look forward to West talking about how to start a business. But I will give you all a notification in advance so that you know what to look forward to. And then of course I'll see you all on the weekend as per usual, whether Friday or Sunday, and I will let you know. So enjoy your Sunday evening, folks. Take care, and thank you so much for joining me. Yes, have a safe week.